Long Beach, California, 1964. Backstage at the International Karate Championships. Bruce Lee stands in the center holding a single wooden board, not set up on bricks, not placed between spacers, just held loosely in the air by another martial artist. 20 experienced fighters watch in silence. A sixth-degree karate master stands off to the side, arms crossed, waiting. Bruce chambers his leg. Sidekick position. The board wobbles in the holder's hands, completely unsupported, no rigid structure beneath it. What happened in the next 3 seconds didn't just break a piece of wood. It shattered a fundamental assumption about power that had dominated martial arts for decades. To understand why, we need to rewind 15 minutes. Long Beach, 1964. The International Karate Championships. The biggest martial arts tournament in America. Ed Parker, the legendary Kempo master who organized the event, had invited Bruce Lee as a special guest demonstrator. Bruce was 23 years old. No movies yet, no fame, no global recognition. Just a young Chinese martial artist teaching a small group of students in Oakland. Most people in the tournament had never heard of him, but Ed Parker knew. He'd seen Bruce move, seen his speed, understood this young man represented something different, something that challenged traditional martial arts orthodoxy. Demonstrate for them, Ed told Bruce earlier that day. Show them what you do. Bruce agreed. And now, backstage in the demonstration area, 20 martial artists gathered to watch. Black belts from various styles. Karate, judo, kung fu, taekwondo. Men who'd spent decades training, competing, teaching. Among them stood Master Tanaka, a sixth-degree karate master, 40 years old, 25 years of training, traditional Shotokan, discipline, form, power demonstrations. Everything done by the book. Tanaka had agreed to demonstrate first. He wanted to show these young martial artists what real karate power looked like. His students brought out 3 one-inch pine boards with spacers, placed across concrete cinder blocks. Perfect setup. He stepped back, composed himself. Deep breath. Then, with a powerful ki, he brought his fist down. Crack! All 3 boards split clean. Splinters flew. The martial artists nodded appreciatively. Years of conditioning, proven in one strike. Tanaka bowed, then turned to the group. This is how we prove power in karate, he said, gesturing to the broken boards. The board doesn't lie. Either you break it, or you don't. His eyes found Bruce. Not hostile, but challenging. Mr. Lee, Ed Parker speaks highly of your skill. Perhaps you demonstrate. Show us how Kung Fu approaches power. Everyone understood. This wasn't friendly. This was a challenge. Bruce stepped forward calmly. Impressive technique, Bruce said. Clean break. Tanaka nodded. But I have a question about board breaking, as a measure of power. Please, Tanaka gestured. Ask. In a real fight, Bruce said. Does your opponent hold still like those boards? Does he rest on bricks, not moving, waiting for you to hit him? Silence. Tanaka's eyes narrowed slightly. Of course not. But the board measures power. If you can break wood, you can break bone. Maybe, Bruce said. Or maybe you're measuring the wrong thing. Now, everyone was paying attention. What do you mean? Bruce picked up one of the unbroken boards. Single board 1-inch thick pine. This board, Bruce said, holding it up. Supported by bricks held in a rigid structure that's a static target. You can wind up, focus all your power, deliver maximum force to something that won't move. He walked over to a judo black belt named Jim. Jim, hold this board for me. Jim took it, gripping both ends. Hold it up, chest level, Bruce instructed. But don't grip tight. Don't brace yourself. Just hold it loosely. Jim looked confused, but obeyed. He held the board in front of his chest, gripping the ends lightly, not tensing. The board hung in the air, completely unsupported, except by Jim's loose grip. No bricks, no rigid structure. Just a piece of wood, held loosely in space. This is closer to a real target, Bruce said. In a fight, your opponent moves. His body absorbs impact. There's no solid foundation transferring force back into the breakpoint. Tanaka watched. Skeptical. What's your point? My point, Bruce said, stepping back, is that breaking a supported board proves you can generate force. But breaking an unsupported board proves you can transfer force effectively into a moving target. He chambered his leg into sidekick position. If you can only break boards with perfect setup, Bruce continued. What happens when the setup isn't perfect? Before Tanaka could respond, Bruce snapped his leg forward. Side kick, not a wind-up. Just a quick, precise strike. His foot connected with the center of the board. Crack. The board broke clean. Center split, 2 pieces. Jim stumbled back slightly but maintained his grip on the ends. The room erupted. Wait. What? How did... The board wasn't even supported. Several martial artists moved closer, checking for cracks or tricks. Jim held up the 2 pieces. I barely felt the impact. The board just broke. Tanaka stood frozen. 25 years. Thousands of hours conditioning his fists on Mekiwara boards. Perfecting kata, breaking stacks of wood with textbook form. And this young Chinese martial artist just broke a board under conditions Tanaka had never even considered attempting. Part of him wanted to dismiss it. Trick board. Lucky shot. Something. But the rational part, the part that made him a master, knew he'd just witnessed something real. Something that exposed a gap in his understanding he didn't know existed. Bruce picked up the halves. The board on bricks has nowhere to go. All the energy rebounds through the break point. He gestured to Jim, but when Jim holds it, his body absorbs energy. His arms move back. The board flexes. For it to break, the energy transfer must be more efficient. One of the younger students spoke up. So a supported board breaking is easier? Not easier, Bruce corrected. Different. Breaking supported boards proves you can generate force. That's valuable. But it doesn't prove you can apply that force effectively to a moving, yielding target. He looked at Tanaka. In a real fight, your opponent's body is like Jim holding that board. His mass moves, his structure absorbs impact. If your power depends on rigid support, you lose effectiveness. Tanaka was silent. The room waited. Finally, show me again. Bruce nodded. Another martial artist volunteered. Held another board loosely. Same setup. No support. Just hands gripping the ends. This time, Bruce explained as he did it. The key is focus, not muscular force. Focused energy transfer. You're not hitting the board. You're hitting through the board, transferring energy into the structure itself. He kicked again. Same result. Clean break, board snaps in the middle. Holder barely moves. The board breaks because the energy travels through it faster than the structure can dissipate it, Bruce explained. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how efficiently you transfer energy. In traditional breaking, the rigid support amplifies your force. But against a dynamic target, you can't rely on that amplification. The power has to come from pure energy transfer. Then something happened that would become legendary. Bruce had Carl, a heavyweight boxer, stand holding a training pad against his chest. Stand normal, Bruce told him. Don't brace. Carl held the pad loosely. 220 pounds. Solid, athletic, grounded. Bruce stood 1 inch away. He extended his fist until it barely touched the pad. 1 inch punch, someone whispered. Bruce's fist was already against the pad. No room to wind up. Then he moved. A slight rotation of the hips. A fractional extension. A precise release of energy. The pad compressed. Carl's eyes went wide. And then, despite his 220 pounds, Carl flew backward. Not stumbled. Flew. His feet left the ground. 6 feet back. No way. That's not possible. I need to see that again. Carl came back, half laughing. I felt that in my chest. Through the pad, through my arms, straight into my center of mass. Like getting hit by a car, but from 1 inch away. Bruce demonstrated twice more. Same result each time. Tanaka watched everything. His expression had completely changed. No more skepticism. Now he looked like a student discovering something new. Finally, he spoke. Mr. Lee, I need to understand this. What you're demonstrating contradicts everything I learned about generating power. Not contradicts, Bruce said. Complements. Your board breaking demonstrates force generation. That's real. But force generation is only half the equation. The other half is force application. He gestured to the broken boards. You can generate tremendous force. Your break proved that. But can you apply that force to a target that moves? A target that yields? A target that doesn't cooperate with your technique? Tanaka considered this. In Korda, in forms we practice against imaginary opponents. We assume they'll be there, in position, when we strike. Exactly, Bruce said. And in controlled demonstrations, that assumption works. But in real combat, the target doesn't cooperate. Tanaka finished. He looked at the broken boards, then back at Bruce. I've spent 25 years perfecting techniques against static targets. And those 25 years gave you genuine skill, Bruce said. Real power. But now the question is, can you apply that power in a dynamic context? The room had grown completely silent. Everyone understood they were witnessing more than a demonstration. This was a paradigm shift. One of the younger students asked, "So is board breaking worthless?" "No," Bruce said immediately. Board breaking teaches you to commit fully to a strike. It teaches you to focus energy, to condition your weapons, to overcome the mental barrier of hitting hard objects. That's all valuable. He picked up one of Tanaka's broken boards. But don't confuse the demonstration with the application. Breaking boards proves you can break boards. It doesn't automatically prove you can fight effectively. Tanaka nodded slowly. This is what you teach. This approach? I teach adaptability, Bruce said. Fixed positions, static targets, perfect setups. Those are useful for training. But fighting is dynamic, chaotic. Your opponent doesn't hold still. He doesn't give you perfect position. You need power that works under imperfect conditions, like breaking a board that's not supported. Exactly. Tanaka looked at the broken boards again. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He bowed to Bruce. Not a courtesy bow. A deep, formal bow, the kind a student gives to a teacher. "Mr. Lee, I would be honored if you would teach me. Not your style, not your techniques, but your approach, your understanding of power application." Bruce returned the bow. "I'd be happy to share what I know, and I'd be honored to learn from your experience in traditional training." What happened that day backstage at Long Beach changed more than just Tanaka's understanding. Word spread through the martial arts community. Bruce's demonstration, breaking boards without support, the 1-inch punch, became legendary. But the real impact wasn't the physical demonstrations. It was the philosophical shift. Bruce showed that what works in demonstration doesn't always translate to practical application. Years later, this principle would become central to Jeet Kune Do. Be like water, Bruce would teach. Water adapts to its container. It doesn't require perfect setup. It flows, adjusts, applies force where and when needed. Tanaka took Bruce's lesson to heart. He continued teaching traditional karate, the forms, the discipline, the conditioning, but he also incorporated dynamic training. Moving targets, unpredictable setups, practical application under chaotic conditions. He told his students, master the basics against static targets. Learn to generate power, develop precision, condition your weapons, but don't stop there. Test your skills against moving targets, against resistance, against unpredictability. That's where technique becomes art. So here's the question. In your life, what are you breaking boards on bricks? Your presentation works perfectly with slides, but falls apart without them. Your skill shines in practice, but disappears under pressure. Your technique looks flawless in controlled conditions, but crumbles when things get messy. Real expertise isn't measured by what you can do with perfect setup. It's measured by what you can do when the projector fails, when the client asks unexpected questions, when conditions aren't ideal. Bruce didn't diminish traditional board breaking. He expanded the definition of power to include adaptability, efficiency, practical application under imperfect conditions. Your skills need the same expansion. Learn the basics with structure and support. Then test them in chaos. That's where competence becomes mastery. If this story made you think differently about the difference between demonstration and application, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about training, philosophy, and the moment when technique meets reality. And comment below, what's something you can do perfectly with ideal setup but struggle with under messy conditions? Where's the gap between your controlled practice and dynamic application?